What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the prep series. Thanks to everybody that's followed along so far, reached out, left comments, sent messages. I appreciate it. If you haven't checked it out already, weeks 22 through 19 are already up on the YouTube. Besides that, if you haven't checked it out, check out the One More Rep podcast. That's on the same YouTube channel. So, 18 weeks out now. I'm going to include a couple pictures to give you guys an idea of where the visuals are. I talked last week about having a, refeed meal that my coach sent me out to get. I went out and got sushi. At that point, it brought my weight back up to 257-ish. And I've pretty much just hung out there since then. I do think I look leaner, but the scale hasn't moved a ton. So when I checked in with my coach with this set of pictures, he did make some adjustments. He did bring the food down. He brought the cardio up a touch, and I personally moved my steps up just a little bit. I went from a 7,000 step per day minimum to an 8,000 step per day minimum. Not a huge change, but along with everything else, I think the whole recipe should be enough to get things moving in terms of obvious fat loss, even scale weight coming down. Scale weight isn't everything, obviously, but just with where I am and how heavy I am, the scale is going to need to come down for me to get into proper stage conditioning. So that's where things are. Still very excited about the process, staying positive, remaining grateful for my ability to be able to do this and the life that I have, the position that I'm in. Today, you will see some clips from a leg workout that I did. I actually did this leg workout yesterday, and I was too smoked on the way home to really want to do this vlog or do the speaking part of this. So you'll see I went to this different gym because I feel like I've been missing a squat variation in my programming. If there was one thing that I was ever going to complain about the current gym that I go to, I just don't love any of the squat machines that they have. They don't necessarily agree with my 32-year-old knees at this point. They have the old Cybex hack squat, which is very heavy. It's very steep of an angle. And so if you're, 24 and full of a bunch of piss and vinegar and a whole lot of tests, and you can put a bunch of plates on it and do that, by all means, go ahead and do that. Even with a reverse band, that thing just doesn't agree with my knees. So I've been mostly leg pressing and hip pressing at this other gym. And so I took a trip out to the gym that you'll see in the video. They have a Nautilus hack squat, which I love. I do a couple sets there. They have the Rogers hip press, which is different than the one in my other gym. A couple sets there. And then a Strive lying leg curl, which anytime I see a unique kind of rare old school piece like this one, I got to get on there. So a couple sets there. I'll put the full leg workout in the description below. And that's pretty much everything. I'm going to try and keep this one a little bit more brief than some of the other ones. I've started to get a little bit long-winded. And for those of you that know me, or, if you've previously watched the podcast, being long-winded is kind of my thing. So I'm going to try and keep this brief. I got some questions that I'm going to answer for the people besides the actual prep update itself. So this person wanted me to answer if I have ever used Lasix. Lasix is a loop diuretic, and the answer to that is no. That is one that, if not done correctly, if not done with the correct knowledge or oversight from someone that does have the knowledge, it can be the last thing that you do. So those type of drugs, there's only a few of them in bodybuilding, but there's a few drugs in bodybuilding that can kill you on site. And because of that, I've just avoided those drugs. DNP is another drug that comes to mind, that if you overdo it, with one use, it can kill you. And so I've just personally never done it, and never will. So Lasix, have I ever used it? No, and I never will. The diuretics that I have used with some varying degrees of success are Diazide and Adductor. Diazide is a little bit more of an immediate and direct punch. That's the one that it can definitely leave you pretty flat, especially if you're already in really good shape and then you throw in some type of Diazide. There's a chance that you're going to be flatter than you like, or what you're able to come back from. So don't necessarily love that, but it's probably the most commonly used diuretic in bodybuilding. Adductor is a slower, more mild diuretic, and that's one that takes a little bit of time to build up. And so you'll see or hear people using that for a week or 5 days out from the show. And I've actually had quite a bit of success with this. Some of my best stage looks, both in terms of combining conditioning and dryness, but being able to also fill out, were with Adductor. One of them that I can remember, I think I did 50 milligrams a day in the morning for 6 days leading up to the show. So like started on a Sunday, the prior Sunday for what would be a Saturday show. So that's been my experience. Next, this person asked, what was your highest effort prep and was it your best look? My highest effort prep was 2015. I worked a corporate job where I commuted just under 2 hours each way every single day, Monday through Friday. And at that that point in my life, the prep required, I was doing 2 hours a day on the stairs starting at 10 weeks out. And I think for the last month, so the last 4 or 5 weeks, I was doing a third hour of cardio at home before my last meal. I had a stationary bike at home. So I would do an hour fasted. I would bring all my work clothes with me. At the time, I was wearing like dress clothes, a full suit and everything. So I'd bring all that to the gym. I'd go to the gym in the morning. I'd be there at 4 a.m. when, hopefully the person was going to be there to open the gym doors. Do an hour on the stairs, shower, get dressed, drive all the way out to work a full day, drive all the way home, train with weights, and then do another hour on the stairs post-workout, go home, eat, another hour of cardio on a bike, eat, shower, go to bed, repeat. That was the highest effort and most challenging prep that I've ever had. That was, like I said, 2015. So it was only my second bodybuilding prep at the time. And was it my best look? In terms of my whole journey, no. But also I can look back and say that that was probably the most conditioned that I ever was. I mean, I was see-through sliced. I didn't have tons of muscle at the time, so I can't really even judge the fullness. And I was still relatively new to bodybuilding, but I would say that that was my best conditioning solely from like a body fat percentage or perspective. It's tough to say. It definitely wasn't my best look in terms of combined fullness and looking like a bodybuilder on stage. But in terms of just conditioning and being flat and not worrying about being full, it was the best because I just had no body fat left on me. I think that is a lesson learned for people that most of the time experienced bodybuilders will tell you that their highest effort preps, the preps that required the most effort, probably didn't yield the best look. Sometimes it does. But for the most part, if you've ever had one of these contest preps where everything clicked and you got a lot of response for not much change or not much effort, those are usually the times that someone looks the best because you're able to reverse it and get them full and fresh looking before the show. It's not just a constant linear progression downwards. Last question, when to use refeed days? like this says, when to use a refeed day or days versus using cheat meals. I think this depends on how well your coach knows you. So from like a coaching perspective, a big thing with this is, have I been in a prep with this person before? Do I know that they bring striated glutes to the stage? And kind of, can I get away with this? If I've been with someone for a couple years, we've brought a couple really nasty looks to the stage. They stayed in pretty good conditioning during the off season. Let's say we're ahead of schedule or we're on a good schedule, then maybe I'll send someone to get sushi or a burger and fries, something like that. I've personally very rarely get people so crazy flat that a cheat meal is quote unquote necessary or needed. That's not really how I do it. I just try to balance it with the same bodybuilding food that we're going to use all the time. So I personally use refeeds or just higher carb days much more frequently, especially if it's our first prep together. It's just the most predictable thing. In terms of when this would start, to me, I think this should be when there's been, I hear people doing 1 week of contest prep. Maybe they lose 3 pounds and then they're like, my coach sent me out for a cheat meal. It's like, you're kind of just putting an immediate halt to whatever small amount of momentum you created in 1 week. I view it as something like, we've already seen a pretty significant scale or body fat drop. And to me, this should start to be a consideration the first time someone comments on like not feeling super aggressive or super strong in the gym. Maybe performance took a dip, or they're not looking forward to going to the gym for the first time in prep. Then maybe if they're already down like a pretty good chunk of weight at that point, then it might be time to start bringing back food. Or if they've reached a point where, they reached a certain level of leanness, and then for a week on end, let's say, their body weight didn't change. You lowered food or maybe brought cardio up, changed the drugs, and then they went another week and their weight didn't change or their weight went up. At that point, your metabolism might have slowed or your body's just fighting back. So you bring more food in, maybe have them skip a day or two of cardio, and it gets things moving again. But that's everything. I'm going to cut it here. There will be a 17-week out update in the coming days because I'm a little bit late with this one. But for now, that's the 18-week out update. And I will see you guys next time.